Go ahead, put it on real tight. Hope you brought your best tonight. They say they got the fireworks, yeah, they say they got the show. You're around the shoots, you're the best, so let's go.
This is Texas Toast, a production of TSC Entertainment. I'm your host, Miss Helen. Kick back and enjoy as we toast the best from Texas.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to Texas Toast. I'm Miss Helen, and this is like a trip down memory lane for me preparing for this particular podcast interview. And I want to welcome Terry McBride. I can't even believe I'm saying your name and talking to you.
Oh, Helen, that's so nice of you. I mean, we got to talk a little bit off air there. It's so I'm excited. I'm looking forward to this. I appreciate all the kind comments already. Thank you.
Yes, and of course, we're going to get to your current stuff, but I was preparing for this interview, and of course, well, to back it up, a few months ago when we were starting to follow the charts, and I saw that you were charting on the Texas music chart, and I was like, holy heavens, Terry McBride, and it just brought back all those memories. But as I was prepping for this interview, I went through all the songs, and us girls would be heading to Austin from Sealy to go to Dance Across Texas and Green Hall and Love on the Loose.
Yeah.
And High Hopes and Empty Pockets, all those songs from McBride and the Ride, those days were like, that was our music. That was our tunes. We're going to find somebody, we don't care who, we're going to dance.
That was a pretty special time. I remember those shows. I remember that Dance Across Texas, just outside Ben White there, I think it was, in Austin.
Yes.
Lying around I remember one of my friends from George Strait, Benny MacArthur, he called me and said, Terry, man, you got a line all the way around the building. I went, this is going to be fun, but Austin was a hot spot. Those stations really were kind to us, played the heck out of those singles, and then when you'd show up, you'd have a crowd ready to go. I remember it well. We had so much fun during that period, and having a lot of fun now. The guys, we've done a few shows this year, all the original band members, and we're all these years later, we're still out there playing those songs from 30 years ago, and people still want to hear them.
Whoa, I didn't know that. So y'all done some shows together?
Oh yeah, we've done about a half a dozen. Our first three were in Texas, one outside Dallas. We played Granger, Cotton Country Club, and then we went to Bernie and played the Roundup. It was a fantastic crowd. Yeah, they've all been really good so far. So that's something we're going to focus on. And we've got one more little tour of Texas in October, New Braunfels, Greenville, Texas, and Plano, where I just was Sunday. I just finished a show up there Sunday afternoon. And one other date that we're working on, but we'll have 4 on that run in October. So yeah, we're back out there doing it. All the original guys, including our steel player from back in the day, Gary Morris, who plays with Brooks and Dunn now. So a lot of fun. You'll have to come see us, Helen.
I know. I've got to get off the coast. I've got to get inland, as I call it. And that would just be super duper awesome to come see y'all play, and you as well.
Well, I'd love to have you there. Yeah, you just look me up and you can see the schedule and the calendar. I'd love to have you anytime. You let me know.
Oh, I will. Absolutely. So when McBride and the Ride, when y'all broke up, you transitioned over to, I mean, I can't believe the plethora of songs that you have written. I mean, I knew all your McBride and the Ride songs, and then, not realizing if you see him, if you see her, Cowgirls Don't Cry, Hanging In, Hanging On. I mean, we could go on and on. Your list is like this long. So when you transitioned from McBride and the Ride, then you teamed up with Ronnie Dunn and did a lot of songwriting.
Well, I did. How I got to Nashville was through songwriting. I wasn't really going after a record deal. I was trying to write songs. I'd been writing songs. I was out on the road with the guy Delbert McClinton. I was playing bass.
Another one of my faves, yes.
A Texas legend, and I was playing bass with Delbert for a couple of years, 86, 87, and having a ball. But also I could see the future for me. I could stay with this wonderful gig that I loved, or I could try to make my own way, which was really scary at the time. I left Delbert not knowing what was going to happen, only knowing that I had to focus on myself, kind of get myself together personally, physically, and focus on writing, which is what I did. Just constantly working, writing, creating demos, doing it all on my own, all by myself. No co-writers in the beginning. Nobody wants to write with you. You haven't done anything yet, And a guy in Austin, Texas, Bill Carter, and his wife, Ruth Ellsworth, a little songwriting couple, And Bill had started having some success with the Fabulous Thunderbirds. Stevie Ray Vaughan recorded a couple of his songs. Crossfire, one of the sort of a hit if you're a Stevie Ray Vaughan fan. Willie the Wimp and his Cadillac Coffin, crazy cool stuff, you know? So I left Delbert. He was putting a band together, and I auditioned for the band. And I got in the band. We went out and opened a whole Stevie Ray Vaughan tour all the way up to New York City and back to Austin. And through that process, I started playing Bill and Ruth a couple of my little homemade demos, and they really liked them, you know, and they said, let's start writing. We did. We wrote several really cool songs, which led us back up to Nashville. I'd been making trips, and we caught the ear of a guy at BMI. They sent these tapes and said, hey, we're from Texas. You know, they knew Bill and Ruth, but Jody Williams at BMI did not know me. I wasn't with BMI. I wasn't affiliated with anybody. So he liked what he heard. He said, man, you know, we were saying we want a George Strait cut. You know, we're from Texas, so we set the bar high. And he said, well, man, whoever's singing these demos needs a record deal. And he single-handedly took it upon himself to get us meetings at almost every major label in town. And the last meeting, the last day we were there, was with Tony Brown at MCA, and Tony just flipped. And he said, man, I'm going to fly to Austin, and if you're the real deal, I'm going to sign you to the label. And he did. And that's how I really got started. You know, it all started with me. I'm a musician for years and years and years, struggling, then focusing on writing, writing nonstop, and then making trips to Nashville, humbling, rejections constantly. And then finally, songs got better and doors slowly opened, you know, and that's the way the process sometimes can work. And that's how it worked for me. And then while I was in McBride, I started getting some cuts. John Anderson was my first from the movie 8 Seconds, the Lane Frost story.
Yes.
McBride, I like to tell people we're in the movie 8 Seconds for about 6 seconds.
That's
you know,
right.
But,
yes.
Yeah, we had the single from the album, us and David Lee Murphy. Had the single from the soundtrack. And then I was kind of off running. My next cut was George Strait, of all the people, you know, and ended up with a couple from George. And then those guys, Brooks and Dunn, recorded one of my songs. And Ronnie was so gracious. He was such a fan of me and my music, which I had no idea. We were all nominated for New Group of the Year in '92 at the ACM Awards. Brooks and Dunn, Diamond Rio, McBride and the Ride. You know, it was like the heyday of the '90s.
Yes, it was. Oh, yes.
And I met Ronnie at that award show, and he told me, man, I'm such a fan. And I was just shocked that he even knew who I was, you know, because I was such a fan. When Neon Moon came out, it was over for me. You know, I thought that was the best marriage of a singer song that, you know, aside from maybe George Strait at that particular time that I'd heard. And then when he recorded my first song was I Am That Man. And he said, man, you know, Ronnie was telling me, I'm getting off the band bus. I'm getting my own bus and I'm heading to California. Why don't you come go with me, you know? So I went over to his house. We hung out. We hit it off. We laughed and had a lot in common, we realized, personally, musically. And I went out on that run for 15 days. We wrote 10 songs on that trip. And several of those ended up being recorded by Ronnie. And that started a 13-year relationship professionally and personally. And it was just a wonderful way, like you said, for me to transition from the end of my band, but the beginning of a lot of songwriting for me.
And it's just hit after hit after hit. I mean, it's just so many like songs that are gifts. It's not just songs. It's like the songs on, you know, your catalog basically are just every song is just touched people in so many ways and become hits.
Well, and some of my heroes, that's the special part of it for me. I mean, the hits are great, allows me to pay my bills and keep my house, you know, which is important. But, you know, having people like George Strait, that's pretty mind blowing when you're a fan. Hank Jr., you know, Garth Brooks, Alan Jackson, people like that. Those are special moments, you know, and then forming relationships with songwriters along the way, people I looked up to like Dean Dillon. Chris Stapleton became one of my pals. I've written a lot of stuff with him. We've had some cool cuts together. And, you know, it's just been an interesting process and very enjoyable. A lot of ups and downs, like the business is for everybody. But now here I am, you know, Helen, all these years later, still wanting to sing and write some songs. I took about a 20-year hiatus, a little break, you know, and then had some people were encouraging me to try to do something. And then what I was doing musically seemed to fit because I started writing with all these Texas kids and, you know, yes. Cody Johnson, Josh Ward, Tristan Morez. It kind of goes on and on. Just had the little recording and a duet with Kinfo. Those guys are great.
I love them.
I think that's their next single. So it's all exciting. I love that. And so I found a little audience that kind of liked what they were doing and what I was writing. So with what I'm recording, it fits, and that's a great feeling. I get to kind of be who I am, write what I like, and then have people interested in it is just the payoff at the end of the day. And getting to go and play some like I did this week. I just got home from 4 shows back to back. It was great. It was a tough trip, but wonderful people coming out, and that's the payoff for me. Getting to entertain, play these songs, and like with you, I take them down memory lane. I go all the way back to the beginning. I play the hits I've written for other people, hits I've had, and it's fortunately and hopefully for the fans, it's an interesting night of music for them.
Well, and I think that's what's so interesting is we've got such a trend going on with the Texas music right now. And I think that's why it's so exciting that somebody like Terry McBride has jumped in, because so many of our kids, I call them the kids, the young ones,
Yeah.
they really have that 90s sound, and they grew up with the 90s music. And it's like, and what I love is like prepping for this, it was like a trip down memory lane. And then it makes me feel like a kid again, listening to your new stuff. Like, I feel like if you could have told my 25-year-old self when I was jamming to McBride in the Ride driving to Austin that I would be interviewing you one day, I would have been like, really? But yeah, it's just amazing. I'm so excited to talk about your new stuff. Of course, in 2017, you released the album Hotels and Highways. And one song on there I really liked was Worth the Shot. I really liked that one.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, I like that one too. I played that for a long time in my set, and still kind of go back to a couple things. That EP, I was proud of that EP. I had never done anything on my own solo. I'd always recorded with the band. I literally went from an obscure musician in Texas who was writing to all of a sudden getting this record deal and heading up this band. So when my recording and label relationship was with the band, when that ended, then I just thought I got to focus on writing. And that's what I did, and had a comfortable living doing it, and was enjoying it, kind of not the pressure of having to be in the spotlight. I didn't really know how to move forward as an artist. I didn't really want to until all these years later. Now I feel comfortable. I wasn't in the beginning. It was daunting, to say the least. I mean, my show consists of about 19 to 20 songs, and I didn't even know them, even though I wrote them. I had to spend a lot of time preparing, playing. I'm a bass player, but I'm also a guitar player, so I had to learn those licks. I had to find a way to get in and out of my songs, and what am I going to talk about. And then a few cool audiences later, I got the confidence that I was lacking. And then I felt better about it. The shows were getting better, the crowds were getting bigger, and with what I'm doing, my solo stuff, it's a singer-songwriter one-man show. I don't have to have a big crowd to have a good time or to have some success. And there are lots of places like that to play, not only in Texas, but around the country. So it's working out pretty good so far. I'm enjoying it. And that's the bottom line for me. If it was grueling, which sometimes it can be, traveling is tricky and it's a lot. We're small. I have me and one young guy that travels and goes ahead, sets everything up. We carry a lot of merchandise. It's to come off looking good and sounding good, and also look like a touring act. It takes a lot of preparation. It's a lot of work. But at the end of the day, like I said, the payoff is when the crowd comes and shows up. And it doesn't. I've had some small crowds that are some of my favorites, because they just are there for the music,
Right. I love that you shared that. That was we have a lot of young artists that listen to this podcast, and talking about your experience with songwriting and what you just shared now, I think that's really some priceless information for some young ones to pick up on. So yes, and so
well,
you did.
So.
Yeah, so Rebels and Angels is your current album, and that's the title cut, Rebels and Angels. You pulled in Patty Loveless on that. That is a beautiful waltz, and I love Patty Loveless.
Oh, me too. I mean, she's one of my favorites. Early on, I just, she's so honest and, country and classic, in many ways, vocalist, her bluegrass influences and that she grew up on, and her song choices were great. Her hit, Blame It on My Cold Dead Beaten Two-Time and
Oh, yes.
I had that song first before Patty, because I had just written the hit with Costas, who wrote that song. We had a big hit that I wrote with him called Going Out of My Mind for McBride the Ride.
Oh,
and
yes.
then Love on the Loose, Heart on the Run. That's Costas as well. So Costas started sending me all of his demos, and he sent me that song, and he said, Terry, this would be cool for you. And I loved that song, Helen. I knew it was a hit, but it just sounded a little mean coming from a guy, you know.
That's
I
true.
couldn't get over that. Dang it. I just didn't want to be mean in the song, although maybe I should have, because I knew it was a hit. And then I ended up giving it to Patty. So in a roundabout way, Patty told Tony Brown about me way before I even knew Tony, and I had no idea. He just shared that with me a few years ago, and I knew her band. I'd been to see her. I was sending them my demos. They were playing them on the bus. She was hearing them, and then she told Tony Brown, the head of MCA, "You should keep an eye out for this kid, this guy," and that, which was great. So I've always had a special place, in my heart for her. I reached out to her. I wrote that song, Rebels and Angels, with Chris Stapleton, and I loved it, but I thought, no one's going to cut it. It's a waltz. It's a ballad. It's so country. It doesn't fit any box right now. But I thought I can cut it. And then as I listened to the lyric, it's really a story about a couple and their daughter. She's the angel. Her boyfriend, her husband to be, is the rebel, just like they were. So I thought, that's so cool. I'll be the rebel. I'll let Patty be the angel.
The angel.
And when I called her, she was so gracious. She went, "Terry, I like this. I like this song. I like your version of it." I just sent her a little guitar version. I sent her the demo first is Chris Stapleton. She goes, "I like that too." But she goes, "There's something about the way you're doing it." And I thought, wow. She told me, Helen, she said, "Last year I sang with Bob Seger, and this year I'm going to sing with you." I thought,
Oh,
well,
wow.
thank you, Patty. I appreciate that. But yeah, she made me sound pretty good on that song. I'll tell you what.
She's such a beauty. I love her music too. And I have to tell a story. It's funny. We had a publicity photo of her in our studio, and I kept looking at her hair and looking at her hair. So I told my program director, I said, "Hey, I'm going to borrow this for a few hours." He said, "Like, for what?" I said, "I'm taking this to my hairstylist because I want to get my hair cut like Patty Loveless."
She always had a great look. She still does. I mean, I liked everything about her. My very first tour with McBride and the Ride, we went to Canada and we toured with the Desert Rose Band, Patty Loveless, McBride and the Ride. That was the tour, and got to spend a lot of time with her, rode on her bus a little bit, hung out and visited with her, and just really liked her as a person a lot. I was already a fan. Then when you meet the artist, behind the song, sometimes it can be good, sometimes it can be disappointing. Usually, but in her case, it was just great. She's a wonderful person, and I was honored to have her on that album. Really made it special for me.
Yes. Another one I want to talk about, bringing back Delbert McClinton and other people that you teamed up with. Okay, Went for One, Stayed Till Two. That is a Helen song. That is a Miss Helen song right there. I love it.
Well, it's autobiographical. That's the real deal. That song is just a little a little glimpse of my life with Delbert back in the day. We were crazy. I was, especially. I loved Delbert. He just took me in. I auditioned in his living room, and then we went to a studio, and then the next day we were in Miami opening for John Fogerty, all within 3 days.
Wow.
And we hit the ground running. We toured with Huey Lewis in 1986 at the top of his career, the Tower of Power horn section. It was just like cool gig after cool gig. Dan Aykroyd, rap parties, world premiere, Dragnet movie. Every week it was something so fantastic. And it took me from just being a club musician guy, although I'd had a lot of experience. My dad was a recording artist, and we had a tour bus. William Morris booked my dad. So we did a lot of cool shows, back in the early, mid to late 70s. Barbara Mandrell, Roy Clark,
idol.
Ronnie Millsap, tours where we would open. So I was gaining and getting great experience early on. That was right out of high school, But Delbert really took it up to a whole professional touring level. It was great opportunities there, and I hated to leave that gig, but I could just see me being a bass player, with Delbert for the rest of my life, which wouldn't be a bad gig. But I wanted to write, and I wanted to try to do my own thing, create my own music. But it was a thrill having that. All of that song is true. I mean, we had so much fun. Delbert would dare me to do things on the road, especially after Tequila, and I would do anything. It brought him such joy. I went, well, who cares, and it was a lot of fun. He would film me doing crazy stuff, but man, I had a great time looking back. And every time I see him, it's just he's an inspiration. I mean, he's 80 years old. His last album, he still sounds fantastic. He's such a pro. He's he's certainly an example of something I would love to be. Just the longevity that he's had is not easy in this business, and so right now, Helen, I'm the oldest baby act on the Red Dirt chart, so it's pretty
Well,
interesting
and
for me.
see, and that's what I think, because you have such deep roots in Texas and grew up in a musical family and grew up in Texas and was always true to Texas. And it's like you've done, like what you just shared, you've done all these things and you went full circle, and you're back here making an impact on our charts, which I'm so proud. From the very beginning of Texas music, I was all in it. I fought for it at the radio stations. These original, the original songs about Texas,
Yeah,
written by Texans, and
yeah.
I've loved it all along and followed it all along. And it's just so intriguing to visit with you and to go full circle. And you had Calling All Hearts went #1 on the Texas Regional Radio Report on the charts. That's a
Yeah.
gorgeous song.
Oh, thanks. That's kind of the first song I wrote with my producer, Luke Laird. I've known Luke forever, 20 years. He was just getting out of college. And he actually went on the road with Brooks and Dunn. He was dating Ronnie Dunn's daughter at the time. And I love Luke. He was just a kid, but now 20 years later, he's had 21 #1 songs as a songwriter, from Casey Musgraves to Eric Church to Little Big Town. I mean, it goes on, and fortunately for me, he was always a fan of McBride and the Ride, so he wanted to do something, and we just started writing songs. That was the first one, Calling Our Hearts. That was our first day of getting together to write. And I love that radio and a lot of the young guys think it's like 90s country. For me, it's just kind of what I like.
It's yes, right.
But I like it that they feel that I'm bringing sort of that vibe to it, but it's just kind of what I've always done,
Mm-hmm. And speaking of my love of Texas music, I'm telling you, I got like all kind of hearts by this one. And I remember the first time I heard it, but Love Me Some Texas. That is as Texas as you can get. I absolutely love that song.
Oh, thanks, Helen. I mean, as a Texan, I poured my heart into that. I took more time on that song than maybe any song I've ever written, because it meant so much to me personally. And I wanted to just take the listener on a little journey of a little glimpse of look at my life. I mean, it starts out with, I grew up on Bob and Willie. My dad loved Bob Wills. I loved Willie. He was my big hero, my inspiration as a young kid. When I first heard Phases and Stages, my life changed, really. I love that album so much, and then every verse and every line after that are just memories that I had. My dad taking us to Big Bend. So when I talk about, Love Me Some Texas, Alpine to Austin, Alpine.
Yes.
I lived in Austin, and there's not a spot or a line in the song that I haven't lived. And I love songs like that. They don't always come along, but the personal songs, they connect. I played Sunday afternoon up in Plano, Love and War. That song probably got the best response of any song I had, because I'm in a room full of Texans and it just connected in a way that's real, and you just can't make that stuff happen. But when it does, it's a powerful moment, and it's a rewarding feeling, and it makes for a nice moment in my show, to say the least,
Well, I love it and appreciate it so much. And so right now you got another one moving up the charts. She shows up. It's #14, TexasCountryMusic.com, 17 on Texas Regional Radio Report. And that is a dance hall sounding song.
Yeah. Well, Helen, that's what I cut my teeth on as a kid.
Yes.
I grew up in Lampasas, Texas. And when I was a kid, my freshman year, there were these older guys in Lampasas. They started out as an FFA talent team.
Oh,
and they went on to the national finals in Kansas City. They won the whole thing, and they were a three-piece, really cool. They did nothing but, Fair and Young, tons of Ray Price and Johnny Bush. They were all shuffles, everything you could two-step to is what they were doing. So when they came back home after winning national finals, it was like the, Hill Country Beatles had showed up. I mean, kids came from everywhere. When they would play on Saturday nights. I went to junior high just to see them because they were such a big deal. And then when I was a freshman, they asked me to be in the band, and they expanded the band a little bit. They brought in 2 extra people, a steel guitar player, and I played bass, where the lead singer had been playing a keyboard bass standing up. It was really unusual, but it was working and really cool. So I did that all the way through high school. And all we did were classic country tunes, and then whatever was coming out of Austin, Texas, Jerry Jeff, Rusty Weir, Doug Tom, Gary P. Nunn, all of that, which I could get in my car. I had a little Malibu back in the day. I could get in my car an hour later, I could be at the Rome Inn, or I could be at the Armadillo World headquarters, and I could see my heroes on stage, and then go back home and play their music, on Saturday night. And it was just such an amazing time, because the outlaw thing was exploding,
Yes,
in Austin.
yes.
It was such a great time, and such great music. I started seeing this guy Clark. I started seeing his name on these albums. I went, who is this guy Clark? He's writing these songs that I love, And then, of course, realized who he was, because he was taking off and getting noticed around Texas. Then when I got my record deal, fast forward all those years later, my point person at MCA said, Terry, we're going to start putting your calendar together. And my very first co-write in Nashville was Guy Clark.
Stop it. Stop it.
My first co-write. I couldn't sleep, Helen, for it was freaking me out a little bit. I admired him so much, and I knew everything about him. And he was a big, hulk of a guy. And, but I had 5-6 ideas. I was not going to be, turned away or disappoint him, is what I was hoping. He didn't need me to write a song. He was just doing me a favor, because I had a deal, and he was trying to make a living in Nashville, writing songs with guys like me. But when I went in, he liked the first idea. We kind of talked Texas a little bit. He made me feel a little bit better about being there. I never could really truly relax. But after that, he took the song home and finished it. And then the next time we got together, he invited me to his house. First time we went to the office downtown on Music Row. Mm-hmm. But great experience. He gave me some confidence then that I just didn't have, But I thought, if I can hang with Guy Clark, I think I could do this, So it really, really helped me right from my very first co-write.
Wow. Love the stories, love what you're doing. And I thank you so much for taking the time to visit with us. It's just, like I said, it's like I've got some messages to send to my girls. We still stay in touch. Me and that same group of girls, when you grow up in a small town, you're all still so connected, but there was a certain group that we were the ones going to Austin and Green and listening to all that music.
That's part of the beauty of this. I've met so many people like you, and I love it. I love your story, of how the music, you first heard it, how it affected you, what are your favorites. And even on the plane the other day, I have my luggage tag, and this woman, I let her go ahead. I'm glad I did. I let her go in front of me. And then she Googled me, and she said, I didn't know you were from La Paz. And she went, Terry, I grew up on your music. I'm from Salado, and my gosh, she was wonderful. We talked on the plane, and she was wonderful. Now she'll come see me. I love that, relive those moments. But same with you. I know we're going to be in New Braunfels. I think that's October 10th. I know we're going to be up in Plano that same week. That might be the final date, but it's that week of the 8th, 9th, 10th, that run there. But grab your girls and come see me. I'd love to see you in person and have you there. That would be fun for me.
That would be amazing. Absolutely amazing. So like I said, if 25 years old, driving to Austin, listening to you, thinking I would be sitting here in Matagorda interviewing you. But it's such a pleasure. And thank you so much for all the great music that you've put out and sharing with us here on the podcast. I really do appreciate it.
Oh, it's been a pleasure, Helen. I've enjoyed this. Really, you made it, fun for me. I love meeting new people, and I love, getting to hear what you're up to. I enjoyed listening to some of your podcasts early on. I like to see what people are doing before I just jump on here cold, But
right.
You're doing some cool stuff, and with some of my favorite people too. And all the best to you. And I hope we get the chance to do this again.
For sure. Thank you so much, Terry.
All right. Thank you, Helen. See ya.
And with a heavy tongue, she knew where I was from. As she left, I dared to say, well, you can go to hell. Hell, I'll go to Texas. I've had my fill of every place but home.